Hey everybody, thank you again for joining us. My name is John Dupre and I am one of the founders of Revel Woods. And we've been doing this series where we've been talking to expert designers who have been incorporating these larger ticket items like flooring into their business and trying to get a better insight into how to really do that. So today, I'm very fortunate to have one of my good friends, Elizabeth Scruggs from Superior Construction and Design out of Lebanon, Tennessee, which is in the Nashville area for those of you who flunked Tennessee geography. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's very exciting. This is a pristine venue.
It is.
Right. Well, so you have, how long have you been, I guess, let's start with how long have you been involved in interior design, and then how long have you been in business for yourself?
Okay, so about 20 years ago when I started, actually 25 years ago, my husband and I were moving back to Lebanon from Nashville, and we were looking for a house and couldn't find one, and we had a friend and he said, well, just build a house. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. He said, no, it's easy, just build a house. Anyway, he showed me how to do that, and I built our first home, and then it just kind of spun off from there. Then I started building them for ourselves about every 18 months and for ourselves and moving, and that was in 95, 96, and then in 2000 I decided to get my license and go into business, and so that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. Okay. So it was, all right. So I've never built a house, admittedly. I feel like I would have a hard time believing, oh, you could just build it. It's easy.
Yeah,
So that's actually pretty remarkable.
it's not easy, and I know the way I said it probably sounds like, oh yeah, just build a house, and that's the way he said it to me. Now let me back up. He had been building for years and years, and so I had a lot of guidance there, and I had kind of a mentor, actually two mentors that are builders, and so I just learned from them, and I would call them and they'd kind of guide me. So over that course of those 5 years, from 95 to 2000, before I decided to get my license, let me back up. Here in Tennessee, you can build a home for yourself every 2 years without being licensed. And so that's what we did. And, I learned during that 5 years and educated myself and underneath them, with their guidance. And then I took some courses and finally ended up testing. So, when I said that originally, it sounds like it was boom, 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 easy. It was a course of 5 years. And then I got my license and opened in 2000. So,
oh yeah, no, and I'm sure no one thinks, okay, yeah, I'll just slap a house together, like putting a prefab shed together, which I also don't think I could do. So where did you get into the design aspect? Did you have a little bit of interior design, like of a background before getting into the building, or did you start with building and then learn interior design? Where did that come from?
So, like many interior designers, you hear them say, they always had an interest in design and always loved it. And as I built our homes, I would always design the interiors, obviously, too. And so from that, I would have friends say, oh, gosh, I wish you'd help me with my house. I wish this looks great. And what made you think to do this or whatever? And so it kind of started organically that way. And I would help a few friends here and there do some things. And then I ended up taking some courses, and that came kind of after I got my contractor's license, probably the early 2000s, I guess. And then it was probably 2005, 6, or 4 and 5, because I had my girls in 2005. So anyway, probably right along in there is when I really started incorporating design into the construction and remodeling part. So,
okay. So you're basically a one-stop shop then at that point. Somebody comes to you. Now, do you focus predominantly on new builds or remodels or both? I mean, how does your business divide up in terms of that kind of work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Everything.
We do. Lately, about probably the past 3 or 4 years, it's been predominantly remodels. And that is due, I believe, to our proximity to Nashville. We've had so many people coming into Nashville, and space and property is getting, less and less. So because of that, people are moving out, out, out. Lots of new construction going on, just lots of new construction. However, people that have maybe lived here, not new to the area, they are, because the property, there's less and less property. If they want to move and downsize, they're getting no property. We have a lot of these tall and skinnies in Nashville with a postage stamp piece of grass. And a lot of people don't want that. They want to keep their yard and what they've got. And so because of that, we've been doing a ton of remodeling and additions to homes. So the last 3 or 4 years, we've been doing a whole lot of that. We're mostly residential. I am licensed for commercial, small commercial. And we've done a couple of small commercial projects over the years, but really like residential. I love the part of working with homeowners and, helping them pick finishes in their home and just make it a home for them. So.
No, that, I think that's in line with what a lot of we've seen too. I mean, there's a lot of remodeling, and I think we're going to see with the current environment, a lot more remodeling. I think, we discussed sort of offline a little bit that people predominant, and this is sort of where this is all going to kind of go in the same direction. People predominantly in America they have two big expenditures, yearly or just over the course of when they're not saving for retirement, they're spending on either travel or their homes. And with travel being, especially leisure travel, it's going to be a little skinnier for a while, likely. A lot more time at home. Originally, we were spending 2 to 3 waking hours in the home every day, and then we'd be at the office. And now it's 12 hours. 12 of our waking hours are spent at home. So and then maybe buying a new house is going to be out of the budget, depending on what everyone's job is doing. But it seems like remodeling is going to just take an even bigger upshot, because all of that, any disposable income that's out there is likely going to be spent on everybody going, I hate this place. So how do I fix this? I know I'm guilty of that. I'm looking around and seeing all kinds of things like, we could probably update this, or, if we put this over here. So I know that, I guess, which is really good, because if you're a designer now, you started with building and then went into design. Now, if you were talking to a designer that wanted to get into some of this kind of light construction, remodeling to me seems like an easier place to get into that, right? Than managing a new build, or are they about the same?
They're not the same. Okay. Remodeling actually can be a little bit harder sometimes. And when I say harder, I don't mean harder. Let's see how I can phrase this. And, new construction is just a timeline of events, right? One thing builds on the next, builds on the next. Mm-hmm. Remodeling, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get into. Like if you have to move a wall, so sometimes you have to back up and punt. So, okay, we hit this, line here that we didn't know was here in this wall. So you have to kind of back up. You have to be a little bit, you have to be ready for, issues that come up, and you have to, I think the key to that, the biggest thing is being really transparent with your clients up front, saying, look, this is not HGTV. This is not going to be, one and done and really fast. I want you to be prepared. We may have no issues at all, but I just want you to be prepared. We might run into something that it's going to cause us a day or two delay. We might have to stop and make a decision of how to handle this or that. So in that aspect, it can be a little bit more difficult, if you want to say that, in the fact that you've got to be able to make decisions, and you've got to be able to, to do them, pretty fast, and be able to talk to your clients about that. But, other than that, as far as the timeline, but, the difference between new construction and remodeling, that would be the only difference I see. But remodeling is really rewarding too. I mean, new construction is rewarding because, you have a piece of property and then you have a house. But remodeling is so rewarding in the fact that, you have something that really, was one way, and you shape it into another way, if that makes sense. And it's fun to see that transformation and to see how much happiness it can bring a homeowner too. So,
yeah, I can't imagine the few things, I mean, your house almost feels new, but you didn't have to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're still, same address and everything.
Yeah.
So I guess like if I'm a designer, which I'm clearly not, but if I wanted to get into some of this, so I guess there's like different levels, right? So there's, okay, I'm just sort of picking finishes, or I'm directing maybe some of the decorating aspect of it, like at one end, and then all the way over to the other end where you're a fully licensed GC and you've got the blueprints out and you're talking about which walls are coming down and you've got your handling the plumbing and everything. And again, I'm not a GC, so probably way underselling everything the GC does. But
No.
so is there sort of like a middle ground or anything? So I'm a designer and I want to start incorporating, I want to find ways to increase my profitability,
Mhm.
but I don't necessarily think I'm going to be able to study and sit for a GC license sometime in the next 8 months. Is there a way, what would you recommend for a designer? I mean, is it all or nothing, or is there sort of a middle ground there?
No, there's a middle ground. And I think the key to that is um, making yourself and your services indispensable to the homeowner, which will make your services indispensable to the GC if you're not, overseeing the entire thing. So definitely there's a middle ground. And when you make yourself indispensable, and what I mean by that is having products that GC can't get, having knowledge that GC does not possess about flooring or about hard finishes, countertops, paint, any of that. GCs, and I'm speaking very broadly here and in broad terms,
Yeah, we
but
will always do that as a disclaimer. There
right,
are always exceptions to
sure,
everything. You might know a guy or someone who's really great and someone who's really terrible, right? Of course.
exactly. But for the most part, they're going to go through the steps, the series of steps I'm talking about, and they are going to go to their same suppliers that they've used for years, which is great. I do that, and I have relationships with everybody. But they're not necessarily going to seek out other options, if that makes sense. Like if they've been using a sun window, I probably shouldn't be throwing out names, but a
I
particular
mean, as
type
long
of
as you're not
window.
saying anything bad about them, you can say
Right?
whatever
No,
you
no,
want about
no,
any
no.
other
Because
brand.
I love sun windows. I use them all the time, but they might not know of a different brand or a different model or something. They can't present that to the homeowner, even in a remodel. So as a designer, if you make yourself kind of indispensable in that way, and you've got the knowledge of newer products or better products that are on the market, and you've got the knowledge of how they work and how they function in that space, then you've established yourself as an expert, and that's really what you want to do. And you have to what I would tell a designer is as far as working with the GC, you know let them know that you're not trying to go over them or anything like that, but that you want to work together as a partnership, that you see that as a partnership, and that you're there to help them and not take anything away from them. So
Yeah, and that was sort of my next question, right? Because we all know any designer who's attempted this and maybe
yeah,
hasn't been as successful. They've run into that challenge of, I'm working with this contractor and I want to source these specific products, and they put their foot down and said, no, I'm going to my guy, my buddy Rick,
right,
who I went to high school with or something. And then
yeah,
they'll come back with a product that maybe it doesn't even look like what you'd sourced. It was like,
yeah,
it's wood, it's fine.
right,
I
right,
mean, how, any recommend? I mean, I know that sometimes you're just going to have an untenable relationship, and that's how it is. But any
yeah,
sort of advice for navigating that, both in the early stages, it might be easier, but even in the, sometimes designers get brought in later,
yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, they were going to get this product from this place. Is that a lost cause? Is there any sort of tips in there? Like, how would you recommend people handle that?
Um, the way I would recommend to handle that is always, communication sometimes is hard, but it's very necessary too. So I think if you handle that in the very beginning, whether you are brought on at the beginning of the project, whether you're brought on by the homeowner or the contractor, or whether you're brought in the middle of the project, like you said, which happens a lot, is to meet with that contractor aside separately. And I'm not saying, go behind the homeowner's back or anything like that, but, meet with them and just let them know that you're there to help them and to partner with them, like I said. And in the contractor world, a lot of times, designers get a bad rap because they're seen as, that we're just going to fly in there and we want to make everything pretty and we want to blow the budget out of, all to smithereens, and, just because we want things to look frilly and pretty. And most GCs do not understand that interior designers are there for functionality and space planning and, again, the best product for that environment, for that space. And GCs are there to build the house. They just go, they don't a lot of times, again, generally think out of the box, whereas designers do. And, we look at a blueprint and say, well, this room isn't going to work because there's nowhere to put a sofa. We need to move this wall a little bit. So if you can meet with them on the front end, or even on the front end of when you're brought in the project, if you can meet with them and just, say, hey, I'm here to help you because my name is on this, just like your name is on this, and I want to work with you so we can come out with a really good project. And,
so
and
less
just
of
let them
a,
know. Yeah.
so less of a it's less of a structure and more of a home.
Exactly.
All right. No, I like that. No, I think that's sound advice, because it's tough sometimes.
It's tough. It's tough.
You will get some financial interests, I'm sure. Somebody who's like, look, I was going to make a lot of money buying, we'll talk about flooring because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Flooring to me seems kind of interesting because it seems to be something that it's always been this protected distribution line, and the designer, like, it's great to have their input, but in the end, they've not been incentivized to really purchase it. So it does seem like this sort of thing where designers who've tried it have been checked down by certain contractors, and they think, okay, well, I can't do this. This is something the contractor does. As a designer, I mean, I would hear from you. Do you need a general contractor's license to purchase flooring? Or, is that something that there's some wiggle room on?
Yeah, there's wiggle room. And of course, everything varies by state and even sometimes by county of where you are. You
Fair
can,
point.
yeah. You can, and I'm speaking for Tennessee and my county. You can, if I were not licensed, I can do a project up to $3,000, between $3,000 and $25,000. You need a remodeler, not remodelers, a handyman, what they call a handyman license. Anything above $25,000, you have to have a GC license. Now, when I say that you have to have a license for all that, the reason you have to have a license, or the part you would have to have a license for, is running all that money through your account, right? If you're specifying products and the GC is handling it all, then you're fine. You can specify the products. You can do any of that, and you're fine. And I'm talking about, again, for my area. So that's wide open as far as being able to find products that you can use, that you trust, and that and brands that you can work with, that you can bring in, and again, make yourself the expert in bringing those finishes in for a homeowner.
Yeah. So one of the ways we kind of work with that on our platform, because we are really a designer platform first, but the designer doesn't necessarily have to be the one who purchases from us.
Exactly.
So we've sort of built that in. If anyone comes across that, where it's like, I'm somehow not allowed to purchase flooring for a project without a license.
Yeah.
But if in our case, we'll allow the purchase to be made by whomever, but we have this program where if the designer specs it, there's still a markup to be made from the design perspective. So the contractor, while buying it from us, technically was still buying it through the designer. And what I mean by that is, okay, so the designer's price on, I'm going to make a random thing up. So the designer's price on a floor is $8.99 a square foot. If the designer is setting it up to sell it basically through the contractor, then the contractor is going to buy it for $949, and then if the contractor wants to mark that up to $999 or $1099 to the homeowner, that's the contractor's prerogative. Now the transaction happens ultimately between us and the contractor.
Yeah.
So we hold the liability with the contractor whom we would work with, although the designer for speccing it is still adding that to their business because the designer sold it. So if the designer said to the client and worked with the client, this is the floor we're going to use for this project, and this is what it's going to go down, and we've made sure that it's going to work in this space, and you're educated on it and all that, which we also handle. The contractor can still purchase it directly from us, but it's the designer's, the contractor is effectively the designer's client at this point in our view, as opposed to, okay, thank you for all of the work you did in selling it. You get nothing for this, which seems crazy to me. But as a designer, if you're worried, like, look, my contractor is going to purchase it, then the hurdle doesn't necessarily become, I have to somehow purchase this and float the cash flow. The hurdle is necessarily the designer has to, or the contractor has to use your sources and not the one that they're maybe is accustomed to for a specific project. So I can see that being a challenge, but so everyone knows too, our platform is designed to accommodate multiple people purchasing a project, but without cutting the designer out.
And it does it beautifully.
Thank you.
And that just goes right back to my point of making yourself indispensable to that GC and to that homeowner, because if I were not a designer and I were working with another designer and they came to me and said, hey, I've got this great product. I have built a relationship with this company and I want to present it to our homeowner. They're going to get an amazing product. It's going to be something that is not readily available. Of course, it's readily available. We know that, but it's going to be something different than what's
a little more
typically
bespoke
around here, and create that, must-have feeling, and let the contractor know, hey, you can mark this, there's a markup in it. And of course, he's going to get his or her percentage on the labor as well. But if you take that part off of the contractor where you're dealing with all of that with the client, and then you just hand it to them and say, here, order it. Well, they're going to be all over that. I'd be like, yeah, if I don't have to sit there and send them to the showroom and send them there, and then they're going to come back to me as the contractor with 500 questions about, well, I went to the showroom and I really didn't know about this, and what do you think? That takes a whole lot off of the contractor. And if there's a little bit of margin there for them, and you can present that to them and show them that they're going to have less work and they can get a markup, and you're going to take that off their plate, I can't imagine anyone, if you present it to them that way, that wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be thrilled to do it. And in the end, they're going to have something that's, new, and it's going to be,
much more bespoke.
Exactly. Everybody wants what you can't get, right? Or something new. So.
Right. It's not the same, three colors that are available this one place or whatever it is.
Right. And that's what you typically get with the general contractor. You go in their spec room and you've got 2 countertops to choose from. I worked with one last year. The client hired me, and they had a track builder, and they were building a home, and they wanted me to go to the selection room with them. There was no variation. There was zero. You had these 2 choices in flooring. You had these 2 choices in countertops. And I told my client, I said, look, if we can't deviate from this, I'm not going to take your money, because I'm not going to do you. I mean, you're picking 1 and 2 here. So you don't need me. You can do this. I felt really bad. And so track builders a lot of times are like that, but that's where you've got to come in and make yourself indispensable. And if you can get that product and your service in with them, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Well, and that's what
they need more options. They need more options because it's
like less work for them too, right? Because if the designer's saying, look, I'm not taking from you, I'm giving to you.
Exactly.
That I'm freeing up some of your time. I'm freeing up, you don't have to go back and forth with the client over which of the 50 shades of gray. I'm going to handle all that. I got a source. The stuff is quality. And I mean, and that's the other piece. So you had experience working with us. So
Yeah.
you've had installers that we actually didn't recommend an installer for you, although we do have some good ones in the Nashville area.
Yeah.
So your installer who trusted you, has worked with you,
Yeah.
has put some of our stuff in. And I mean, how did that go? Will they work with you again?
Oh, oh, they've worked with me 100 times since we put our floor in. Yeah. I mean, they're my guys, but, he was like, what is this floor? That was the first thing he said to me, because it's the first time I'd used it, and I put it in my home, and I do that, before I start, really speccing a product for my clients. I want to use it. I want to see it, how it works, and how it functions. And John, my installer, said, what is this? I've never seen it. And I said, I know. I said, it's a new company I'm working with. What do you think about it? He said, I think it's the nicest floor I've ever installed. And I kid you not, that's
Wow.
that's the absolute truth. And then I told you the story about my girl's friend that came over.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, the people listening to this might not have heard that story, so I would love to hear it again. Obviously, I like the story for obvious reasons, but I think other people would be interested in hearing it.
Yeah. So I have 14-year-old twin girls, and anybody listening that's got teenagers, that design and interior is just not really top of their list, right, of things they're going to talk about. So when we were putting our flooring in, my girls had their little best friend over, and we'd just gotten it put in. And so they were walking through the kitchen one day, and they were all barefooted. It was still warm outside. And she said, why does your floor feel different? And I said, what, baby? And she said, why does your floor feel different, Miss Elizabeth? She said, we've got wood in our house, but ours doesn't feel this soft. It doesn't feel this good. And I was like, whoa, for a 14-year-old girl to notice a difference in flooring, I mean, like, they don't pay attention to that kind of thing. That really, really, got my attention. So, that just tickled me. Of course, I couldn't wait to tell you about that.
Yeah, that's high praise, honestly. I mean, we haven't been targeting the 14-year-old girl demographic, but it's always nice when it's appreciated. Well, and I think that's a huge piece of it too, right? Like when you're talking about, we'll zoom out for a minute, right? So I know predominantly the information on working with contractors, that's a huge sticking point for a lot of designers who maybe want to get into some of this, and maybe they're not going to be, like, the idea isn't, okay, well, now you have to become a builder or your design business is going to go under. I mean, that's completely false, of course.
No.
But I think a lot of times when you're talking about some of these larger ticket items, you're thinking about, well, I can't, there traditionally haven't really been any room in there for me. And there's a lot to know. And there's a whole incentive lost because of that. But you really are, when we zoom out a little bit and you talk about something like flooring as that piece of it, being in charge of that. I mean, when you're talking about a designer coming in and turning something from a structure into a home, flooring really shouldn't be neglected in that. I mean, it is your biggest point of contact with your home. I mean, what is your take as far as like flooring, as far as budgeting? Like, where do you put that in? Where do you skimp? Like, what is your overall thoughts on that?
So the flooring in a home is one of the biggest percentage pieces of a project, right? So you want to make the best decision there. And it's a fixed element. It's not something that it's not like, painting a room. If you don't like it, you can't just change it that easily. So you want to put some time and effort and into picking the correct product and the best product. And I think that right now, there is no better time than right now than to get into some of these larger ticket items like flooring and other fixed elements in a home, because you don't have to be a GC to do that at all. You can get these larger ticket items and you can create a relationship. And that's another reason I love Revel Woods so much, is because you and I truly are friends, and I can pick up the phone and call you anytime that I need to, or shoot you an email about an order. We've got one coming in this week, and I don't have to wait 3 days for a response from you. You're on it.
In the interest of full transparency on that too, there was a minor issue with the delivery and we jumped on it immediately.
And you had it handled in like 15 minutes. So relationship, I think, is such a key with with any vendor, you know, and that's what I love that we have with your company. And it's not just me. You and Revel Woods is that way with every designer, and I've seen it. So I'm not somebody that just, you know, says things. If I don't believe it, I don't say it. But you have that. You've made that your mission. And I'm totally speaking here, so tell me if I'm speaking out of course. But I think from what I see, Revel Woods has really made that their mission to create relationships and to be there for the support of designers and to help us with that. And so, and y'all have done such a beautiful job achieving that, I think. But I think there's no better time than right now for a designer to really, you know, because some of us, you know, have some extra time right now, right? And we've got time to create and cultivate that relationship with our vendors and to source products that would be, you know, completely beneficial for our homeowners that maybe a GC is not aware of, and create these relationships and have these in your back pocket so you can present yourself as the expert to a GC in a relationship and to homeowners. And I just think there's no better time than now, because I think going forward, you know, in business, I think that's going to be a big part of what we as designers do, is more so than ever, not that we haven't done this before, but more so than ever, bringing products to the client versus taking a client out and going to, you know, wherever to source products. So
yeah, who would have thought we'd be living in an age where a shopping spree sounds dangerous?
Not the truth.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not to go off on that necessarily depressing subject, but I think you're right. I do think you know, business, it's going to change, but I really see for interior designers, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, there's a real opportunity here to redefine interior design's essential place in the workflow of the home.
Absolutely.
And this is the opportunity, I think, where, you know, in the industry, the design industry has been under attack for a while now. There's been all kinds of different companies that are trying to say, look, everything a designer does, you can do this with this app or this website or this TV show that just show you how to do it. You're a designer now. Congratulations. Yeah. And I know I talked to a number of designers who are extremely frustrated with that mindset because, number one, most people can't do what designers can do. I, being in the trenches with designers, see that I'm one of those people. I can't do it. I know I can't do it. But so I have this deep respect for the profession and for the craft, but the average consumer is being bombarded with high dollar VC funded companies that are trying to tell them that they don't need a designer and that this isn't, it's a luxury. It's not essential. And so here, what an opportunity for designers to grow their businesses and integrate more in with something where you are indispensable. And it is the difference between a structure and a home, where it's not just a luxury or something for rich people who are bored and want to go on shopping sprees or whatever, continually send them links from Wayfair. I'm sure that's all going to still happen, but it's, I don't know. I'm with you on that. I really do think this is a watershed moment for the industry. This isn't just, go with Revel Woods, like getting in with these bigger, we're to try to help it make it easier for flooring, of course, but this overall message, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and like we both said, there's no better time than now. No better time than now to focus on that. And, you know, the opportunity is there because things have changed somewhat. People are more open to conversation and, you know, I just think there's no better time. Typically when we have, you know, with any economy in general, you know, you have ups and downs, but it's in the downtime when you make that good time, right? It's all the work and all the preparation you do during the, you know, downtime or whatever you want to call it.
Well, you don't plant and harvest at the same time.
Exactly. Right. Thank you. See, you're such a more eloquent speaker than I am.
That is not true.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. You know, and if you find the companies that you can work with and do this, you can create, and now's the time to create those relationships with GCs as well, because in different parts of the country, I know it's different everywhere, but I think maybe across the board, probably things are a little bit slower in construction than maybe 6 months ago. So now would be the time to maybe approach those contractors and say, hey, can I meet with you just 10 minutes, or can we have a phone call, and let me tell you what I can do for you. Always make it about them. And that's true with anything, with your homeowner, with your contractor. If you can make it about them and show them what you're going to do for them and how you're going to help them, then, I think right now is the best time to try and do that.
No, I love that. That's great advice. And I just generally approaching it from, look, I'm going to handle some of the stuff you might not want to do. And in turn, you do the stuff that I'm not going to go bother becoming a fully licensed GC. So, we're on the same team, right? So I think that, I really like that. Well, I will wrap this up because I think we're going a little longer, but I appreciate, obviously I could talk to you all day. I feel like I've known you for I feel like I've known you 100 years, but I think we've only known each other for like 1 or 2. So it's, anyway, but as always, thank you so much. And you don't have to agree to this, but if somebody wanted to reach out to you with some general questions, can I put some way to reach you in the notes?
Yeah. And that's another thing. I think working together with each other in the industry, is so beneficial too, so anything I can, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to speak with them, because I think relationships are the key to everything, right? When you get down to it, it's with your vendors, it's with your homeowners, it's with your contractors. And if you can start it off on a positive note, you're going to end on a positive note, hopefully. And I think it's just all about working together. And this time right now is really, we've seen that. So
I think relationships beat price in the end.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's hard to sell that value sometimes, because you think, well, why is this more expensive than that? And it's like, well, because God forbid if there's an issue, even if there isn't an issue, just the value in that is essential. So no, I'm totally with you. I can't thank you enough for doing this today, taking time out of your busy, I think it's Wednesday. I don't even know anymore. But as always, stay well. And to everyone out there, thank you for watching this, and we'll see you next time.